Hey, hey.
Hey, hello, welcome to Cafecito for Two. Super excited to be here. I cannot believe the year is around the corner.
Yeah, we're closing in October.
We're closing in. So today, episode 30 of your Cafecito for Two, we are going to touch on a topic that very related to us. I think we're one step forward in regards to dating, right? We deal with the marriage preparation, but today we are going to bring someone who's an expert in regards to being single and just dating
and embracing who you are, right? Like, I think that's one of the biggest gifts of when you're not in a relationship per se, you're in a primary relationship to yourself. And so I just think it's so exciting because both Javi and I had very interesting experiences. We'll just say that, being single. So they were very educational on many levels. And so I'm excited to hear from our special guest more around her insights.
Great.
Definitely.
And if you're watching us on YouTube, please subscribe to our channel and also hit the notification so you don't miss any video that we post. We post weekly.
Yep.
And if you're watching us on Facebook, just hit the like.
Hit
the like, double hit it. And if you find this useful, I'm pretty sure there's someone, a friend or someone that can benefit. Please share that with them. We really encourage that. So with further ado, you want to make the introductions?
Sure. So it's our honor and privilege to have Acamea Deadwiler here. She's an author, and her book is entitled Single That. And I'm excited because she will be dispelling the top 10 myths of the single woman in our society. So bam on that.
Welcome to Cafecito for Two. We're very grateful to have you here with us. We're so interested in the topic that we're going to talk about because we get the couples that are ready to get married and they're thinking about their wedding, and actually we ask them about their dating life, but I think you are one step, I don't want to say one step back, but you're in that stage of what I think is very important to date healthy, right? And make the right decisions.
And that includes to really embrace whatever status that means. I mean, that's what we're hearing, but we'd love to hear your perspective. Oh, whoa, we can't hear you.
There we go. I think now your mic is unmuted.
Yay!
Technology. But no, you nailed it. That's exactly what it's about. It's about embracing your status, whatever that status is, whether you're single, engaged, married, a wife, or a mother. It's about embracing that status, but also detaching it from your sense of self-worth. So not thinking more or less of yourself based on your relationship status, but understanding that as a woman, you are a whole and valuable person. As a man too. This isn't, I wrote it with women in mind, but it applies to anyone. Just detaching your sense of self-worth from your relationship status, because I do think we can get caught up in that a lot. And if we don't have a partner, we think less of ourselves, or we think there's something wrong with us. And then when we do, some people kind of lose themselves in that situation. And, you're no longer you. You are this the other half of this couple or this relationship. And then if things aren't going right or they don't work out, then where does that leave the way that you feel about yourself? So that's that's essentially what the book is about.
That's awesome.
That's deep.
And what triggered for you to write this book? What was your calling in doing this and obviously helping out people?
Such a fresh perspective.
Yes.
What triggered it was just being a single woman for a few years and dating. And then also what really sent it to overdrive is the advancement of social media. So now we're at this point. We're at this point where we get to see, I don't want to say get to as though it's a privilege, because, sometimes I would rather not see what people think. But we we see everyone's thoughts, and it's a space where people just come and say whatever they're thinking and how they feel. And I just started to notice there was a lot of negative connotations and a lot of negative stereotypes about single women, to where, people would post things like, if you're single, this is what's wrong with you and you need to do XYZ. And I'm just like, wow. So this idea that being single is a problem that needs to be fixed is what inspired me to write the book. And then my own experiences where, like, say when I'm single, you can't go anywhere with anyone without it all of a sudden becoming about your being single. And you need to find someone to hook her up with, and what's going on. It's like it dominates every conversation. And I just got to a point where I was like, hey, I am a whole person. You're a whole person. You're more than your relationship status.
Right. No, I think that's so key, because if you're going to really eventually at some point, or if an opportunity presents itself that you do want to get into a relationship by choice, you would think that, at least from our experience, you'd want to be that whole person. So it's a healthy relationship, right? Like if you're still always coming at it from that societal, like, deprivation model, right? Like I need to complete myself or fulfill myself or be part of another person to like have a wholeness or an identity. That just seems like a setup to me. You know what I mean? Like that can sabotage you in terms of your self-esteem, right?
For sure. I think it's definitely a setup and a sabotage, because as I was saying, if you do tie your sense of self-worth to that, what's going to happen to it when it's no longer there? And that's not to be from a negative standpoint. You shouldn't go into a relationship thinking like, well, what if this doesn't work? But at the same time, I think it makes you a better person when you feel like a whole person and you love yourself, even just as you are alone. I think it makes you even a better partner, because, there's less codependency and more two whole healthy people coming together and, choosing one another.
Yeah. That's beautiful. Yeah. I was saying to you before we started this conversation that we have 2 daughters, and I think this is such a great opportunity in terms of this generation, kind of like basically leveraging the wisdom of women that come before us and create more opportunity for both, like you said, women and men, but to have relationships that are more not necessarily out of need, but out of want or preference or choice. Because I think that really opens you up to a deeper sense of trust, intimacy, communication, like all of it, because you're not based in fear, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's not fear-based. It's not, oh, I can't make it without this person, or, or anything like that. You feel more confident in yourself. And then too, I think that's a heavy burden to place on a partner, to put that on someone else and say, like, I need you to be happy. I need you to, to complete me and make me feel good about myself. That's a heavy burden to place on that partner that most people can't live up to. So I think it is important to not make those fear-based decisions like, oh, I'm afraid to be alone, or I can't make it by myself, because then you make decisions based off of that, as you said, and fear-based decisions almost never go the way you like them to.
Right. And it's so true, because I remember, and we wrote this in our book, I was very close to say, well, I'm pretty comfortable being single, but I want to be a dad. So I'm going to see what is the process for me to adopt a child. And I knew that my finances needed to be in order. And I'm like, all right, I'm heading that direction. I was perfectly okay being a single dad. And I always tell people that when you take the necessity of, getting married or being with someone, when you take that out of the equation, it kind of, everything kind of comes to you. Like you become more attracted as an individual, and people, I'm like, wow, this is pretty cool. I go, yeah, just take that.
Yeah, it is. And it's awesome that you did that, because that's another thing that I think, like, if you want to be a dad, I love that you were open to being a single dad, instead of feeling like, oh, I have to go find someone and things along those lines. And I mean, don't get me wrong. I do believe that having a partner adds to those experiences.
Sure.
It adds to that fulfillment. But I love that you had the mindset that, I want to do this, and it wasn't dependent on whether or not you had someone else or you had a partner. But yeah, for sure. I think, like I said, you are a whole person, and what your wants and your needs matter independent of whether or not you're in a relationship. So I love that was your thought process.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, because that's one of the things that when we do marriage preparation, that's one of the first exercise or the first chapter is accepting yourself, and accepting your partner as well. Because if you don't do that, then obviously your relationship is not going to grow. So we see a lot of couples that they say, well, eventually he will change or she will change. And we're like, not exactly the way it is, because you're expecting something, right?
Yeah.
And you marry out of necessity instead of saying, hey, or like you see some people that say, oh, he complete me, she complete me, or he will fix me, or she will fix me. I'm thinking, I don't think so. I don't see a toolbox there.
Yeah, what you just said is it's dating potential. And I think it's okay if someone doesn't have every single thing on your list. I think that's okay. There's nothing wrong with saying, well, I like this and that about them, so I can overlook this. But I think you have to be honest with yourself and decide, would I want to be with this person as they are? Because there's no guarantee
as is.
Yeah, as is, because no matter what they say or how much potential you think they have, there's no guarantee that person is going to grow or change or do any of these things you think they're going to do. So you have to decide if you want to be with that person as they are. And then if they do grow and evolve in the areas that you think they can, then it's a bonus.
Right, exactly. It's a bonus if the growth happens, but you're already getting the best there is because you're still kind of technically in romance and honeymoon, right? Like you haven't even fully hit the wall, right? So yeah, there's no other like concept. It's really it's gonna come down at some point. I also feel like this is so awesome what you're bringing out and exposing in terms of myths. In particular, because you're getting to the core issue around the kind of belief system that I do think is pervasive and sets people up to later break up and get divorced. Do you know what I'm saying? Like if you cannot really clean this stuff up and get right with yourself first before you enter into a long-term commitment, it just seems to me that a lot of these issues are already kind of lingering or playing out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I definitely think it's a setup. If we adopt this mentality that, okay, I'm 30 now, I need to get married, I need to buy a house, I need to have children, I need to have a family and this and that. If we treat life like a grocery list, then you are setting yourself up for failure. And it is a sabotage because it doesn't work like that, And sometimes I think, especially if we see like friends getting married and things like that, we start to feel this pressure like, okay, well, I need to get married too. Everyone else is. And that's okay if you feel that way, if you feel ready to start a family. But I don't think we should make those decisions based solely on this pre-established criteria or, these gender roles or these established societal norms that tell us like, okay, you should get married, So it's about when the timing is right for you and when you feel like you're a whole enough and ready enough person for that step, and then meeting the right person. But when we take the other approach, we kind of sometimes shoehorn people into that spot. So you marry someone that maybe you probably shouldn't have married because you're not compatible or there's these other issues, but you shoehorn them into that spot because you had already decided, I want to get married.
And you're going to be that person.
Yeah, so you're going to be that
whether
person.
Or not you signed up doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter who it is. The next person I meet, I'm marrying them, that kind of mentality.
Yeah, and it's funny because our younger daughter, no joke, I mean, she's 10 now, but I'm not kidding, when she was like 3, she told us, I just want you to know that I'm not going to have kids. I don't want
wait a minute, she was 3?
Yes.
Oh my
I don't want it to pain, and they're too much stress, and they're too much money. That's what she told us. And so my husband kept saying, no, she'll grow it out. She's been pretty consistent, right?
Very consistent. Yeah.
And so I've always been a fan of, you know what, like you said, you don't always have to, like, if you know in your core being that this is what is right for you, it's so important to follow that. I think that's what we want people to feel permission to follow, even if it does rub up against, right, societal norms and mores or whatever, that you have to be true to yourself so that you can actually be in relationship with yourself and others in a healthy way.
Yeah. What's most important is that you're happy and fulfilled and not following some kind of timeline. Like I read something a little while ago that was said that a lot of people that get married, they don't necessarily want marriage, they want a wedding, you know? So yeah. So you're seeing people get married and you're seeing these beautiful brides, and I want to be that. I want the nice dress and the friends and things like that. But once that's over and all of that has died down,
you get the bill.
You're legally bound to this person. And it's like, is that who you want to build a life with?
That's what you say all the time.
We see that all the time. We did a weekend ago, well, last Saturday, we did a marriage preparation virtual retreat, and I think 80% of the couples there, they were thinking about their wedding, you know. And I was like, okay, that's great, but I keep telling them, I said, listen, after your honeymoon is over, and if you haven't talked about this, you know, these issues that are coming out, they're gonna come out, and what are you gonna do with it? There's not a second or third or fourth wedding that you can do. A party can alleviate and forget about it. You gotta dive into it, and it's very interesting. And I think we, as a society, we are becoming. I spoke to a lot of single people, and I say, how is it? Because for me, I come from generations that, you know, I think I got my first pager when I was 18. So
yeah, we're old school.
So I say, how's it going with you? How's the dating scene? He goes, oh, it's horrible. I said, what do you mean? I said, well, you know, I go out with somebody and they're checking their messages because they already have dates lined up. Like they will have coffee with me, and then they will have dinner with somebody else, and breakfast and lunch and dinner. And I'm like, wow, how do you keep up with everyone? And how do you are authentic and spend quality time? I go, how does it work? He goes, well, we have, you know, we filter things down, and I'm like, wow, that's very complicated. So I think we're becoming a society where I think we are given a process which needs time. It needs
maturation.
Yes, we're trying to accelerate the process and let's go. And I'm like, God, that doesn't work.
Giving shortcuts, right? Like, I just want this to happen, so I'm going to force it, or
I'm going to make it happen. Whether with no concern with whether or not it's right, whether it's the right time or the right person or the right circumstances. You go into the situation with the already determining, like, I'm ready to get married, so I'm going to marry this person, you know, and all of the rest of the important things go by the wayside. But like you said, but then after, when it's all said and done and you're back from the honeymoon, you're connected to this person. And, you know, what do you do then? So I just think it's a serious decision. And we get so caught up in, you know, expectations and pressures and societal norms where people are getting married at this age and have kids at this age. And we think we're supposed to follow that. And I think if you do view yourself as a whole person and you learn to be content alone, you are less likely to fall into that trap. Because you're not, you know, so gung-ho, like, I need to get married. You know, you're content alone. So I always say, be open to it, but, you know, you're less likely to force it if you learn how to be content alone.
Right. And you'll be able to discern if it's the real thing, right? If this really something organically, right? You know, something that feels right, and you'll be more aware and have tuned into it, versus kind of like operating from your own agenda.
Yeah.
I'm curious, like, you know, I know your book's about 10 myths. Do you mind just highlighting a couple of the ones that you think are the most powerful, or give us some highlights around a couple of the myths? I'm really into it.
I think one of the most prevalent myths is that a single woman is lonely, just inherently lonely. And loneliness is a natural human condition. I know married couples who sleep next to a partner every night, and one of them feels lonely. You know, I know who have been in relationships and they live with a partner and they feel lonely. You can be in a room full of people and feel lonely. So it's not a status that's reserved for being single. But I think a lot of times that's assumed, like if you're single, you're also lonely, and people kind of view you that way, kind of puppy dog, like, oh, and we need to find you someone. It's kind of like, what, I am fine if when it happens, I'm open to it. I love the idea of love and commitment. I have nothing against it. I think that's a common misconception that people that just glance at the book think that I'm writing to convince women to be single. And I'm not. I'm trying to, I'm convincing you to be content in whatever your relationship status is, and to mainly detach it from your sense of self-worth. So that if you are single, you don't think less of yourself and you don't think something's wrong with you, and you're not just moping around the house accepting the fact that, oh, I'm lonely and I'm just sitting on the couch and crying into ice cream every night or anything like that. Because a lot of it is mental. We're playing into this stereotype that we believe a single woman is supposed to be. So I think that's a big one. Like, a single woman isn't inherently lonely. We all get lonely, but there are plenty of single women and single people who still live full and fulfilling lives.
Yeah. Do you know that data point? I mean, I just know it from my own grandmothers because both of them became widows, and they were saying how, a lot of times older women, when their husband passed, especially that generation, so an older generation than us, we're Gen X, so older than us, more like boomers. Even above boomers. They have the most fulfilling period of their life because they feel like they can do what they want. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, they feel free for their own interests. So it's like less of that obligation versus like self-fulfillment.
Yeah. And that's a big point I think people miss when you talk about being single, is the freedom that's involved with it. That's something I touch on in the book too, how I took a couple of trips one year. They were professional obligations, but I also take the time to explore the city and things like that. And I did all of this by myself. And I talk about like how wonderful it was that I could go and stand in a museum for hours if I wanted to. There was no one like, oh, my feet hurt and I'm hungry and I'm ready to go. There's a freedom in
Absolutely.
that.
When you talk about ice cream, I remember my best Friday nights were Blockbuster videos, right? And then a pint of Ben and Jerry's by myself. Because I'm like, I can watch whatever I want. And I can eat whatever I want and just chillax. And it was like, it's the best. Where dating, right, the first date can be like, all right, you're like, okay, you're trying to be polite, and some of them have moments you're like, all right, how should I react to it? There's a lot of energy, there's a lot of stress. And I remember, I'm like, oh, Ben and Jerry's night, right on. I was like, but I think there is an art of being by yourself and accepting, you're by yourself. I think there's an art. A lot of people are afraid, but when you are comfortable with yourself, I think it's a great way to be, right?
Well, and being able to thoroughly, like you're describing in the museum, really thoroughly enjoy your own company, right? And it's so odd now, obviously we live a very, our lives are a lot in service to our family right now. And so even when we now have time alone, individual, I mean, I'll speak for myself. I'm like, yes, like, this is my moment. You know what I mean? And so like you were, it's not lost on me. Like you're describing about that freedom. And so it's so important, like, to flip it, right? And see it as a gift and be grateful for that versus kind of like, I don't know about demonizing, but just seeing it, negatively.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. And embracing that. It's like, okay, I'm single. Even if most of us would like to have someone that we can share our life's journey with. Most of us do. So even if you do feel that way, just when that person isn't there and when that's not your circumstance, I'm all about just embracing that time. So it's like, okay, I'm single right now. I'm going to enjoy this. I'm going to pour into myself. And I think when you do things like I discussed with the museum, when you do, whatever you want, when you want to do it, and you focus on 100% on your needs and your wants, and you make those things a priority, I think that's how you learn to love yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're giving yourself these things that you want, and you're taking care of yourself. So then when someone else does come into the picture, you're already in a space where you love yourself, and you're not, looking to them to give that to you.
Yeah, and you're just more grounded, right? In terms
Mhm.
of what you're about, what you
Who you
everything.
are.
It infiltrates every aspect of your life.
Mhm.
Definitely.
Yeah, your authentic likes and dislikes, who you are, what you enjoy. Because if you spend all your time with another person, those lines start to bleed into each other. Now you like what they like, and they like what, and things like that. But when you embrace that time alone, you really get to genuinely learn yourself and understand what you authentically like and who you are, and what brings you joy, and things along those lines.
Yeah.
And the better you know yourself, you're
Yeah.
always better for someone else.
Absolutely.
Totally. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And how you are not then dependent, right?
Mhm.
Psychologically, emotionally on someone else. Like you're not surrendering or expecting them to take responsibility for your emotions, which is,
Mhm.
unrealistic and not fair, right? It's like we always joke with our daughters, maybe we go too extreme, but we're always like, don't even think about marriage until you're 30. Okay. Don't even trip. Like it's not worth it, right? Don't we say that?
I think
Enjoy
as
your life.
parents,
Yeah.
as parents, we are I told my daughter, I said, listen, marriage is not something that you must have. It's just, you want to share your life with someone, but those are not priorities for you
Mhm.
right now. Priorities for you is to really get to know yourself, which is a whole lifetime journey to getting to know yourself. But at the same time, be independent, be a leader as a woman, have your choices out there for you. And then when you find someone, you're like, all right, then move along with it. But it's not a necessity or a label. We see so many families, and that can be Hispanic or Asian families, that tend to really force, like, oh my God, you're going to be 40 or you're going to be 30 something, right? And you need to contribute for the family. Like I came from a Spanish family that it was like, if you have daughters, you better try for a son, right? And I was like, it's all right. No problem, man. Bring me another daughter. I don't really, and you have that pressure of all these old customs, right? And I think a lot of people, especially in the Asian culture and the Hispanic culture,
It's cultural.
they feel like they need to get married. They feel the need to do this in order to secure a life. And I'm thinking, wow, that for me, it's like, no, the opposite. Like it's a journey, and just embrace it, love who you are, and
well, and it's not a life goal. Like I just don't see marriage as a life goal. You know what I'm like? I don't know if that resonates for you, but it's something that is a choice, and you can live it, and that's awesome if that's something. But I never saw it as something that this is what I have to achieve.
I agree 100%. I don't see it as something to aspire to. Like you said, not like a life goal where I need to get there. But a lot of times, as you were saying, when we have these societal pressures and familial pressures, it makes you feel like it should be one of your goals, and that there's something wrong with you if it isn't. And that's one of the other myths I talk about in the book, is this idea that if you're single, you're broken somehow. Like people want to know, well, what's wrong with you? Why are you single? Why hasn't anyone married you yet? Especially if they find you attractive, it's kind of like, okay, there must be something wrong with you. And it's just like, and we're basing all of this solely on a person's relationship status. So like you said, it is this idea that marriage should be a goal. And, I was watching something last week where the woman, she was saying how she was on a date with a guy, and he asked about her previous relationships. And she said, I've been in some good relationships. I really don't have any complaints. And he was like, well, they couldn't have been too good because, you're single, you're not married, and she said it kind of implied that marriage is supposed to be the goal. And if you don't get there, you failed somehow. And so I'm right there with you 100% that I don't see that as, a goal, and not achieving it, so to speak, is some sort of failure.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think there is a couple shows that need to be banned from TV, but one of them is The Bachelor. I think that one is.
Well, and there's isn't there the other?
Yeah. And I'm thinking, it needs to be banned because
can it go
really
off
seriously?
yet?
I'm like, wow, man.
Yeah, talk about that's like the opposite of this mentality.
Mhm.
Well, and I relate to you. You're talking about all these different systems, right? And so I think back, my younger sister got married the same year that I graduated from graduate school. I was the first person in my family to get a graduate degree, and I had a scholarship, and it was, it's probably up there for me, like something that was really near and dear to my heart that I was really proud of. And I just remember how much of that whole year was about pleasing my sister for her wedding. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it was so geared to, yeah, you're getting, you got your graduation. Okay, we'll be there. Just tell us where, when. But it was like everything lined up, it was just, and I'm talking about resources, time, money, like, people flying in, from all over. And I'm not saying that, but, that still happens. And I'm not trying to say it wasn't a beautiful moment in their lives, but it was a really clear juxtaposition for me around this topic of, as a woman, like, wow, this is interesting, how different.
Yeah, like everything was about this wedding. And, and that's something I talk about too, how it's like your relationship status or who you're dating or your marriage, especially when you're a woman, it kind of overshadows everything else about your life. So like you said, there was a graduation and things like that, but this entire year was about her wedding. So it's like, if you're talking to someone as a single woman, especially, one of the first questions is like, oh, are you married, or who are you dating, or what's going on? It's like, never mind that I just bought a house, or I just published a book, or I just came back from this amazing trip to Italy.
Yeah.
Nobody cares about any of that. It's, when are you getting married? When are you having children? Things along those lines. It just overshadows all of these other amazing accomplishments that you have. And that's one of my biggest issues with it.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm curious. Any of your readers come back to you and say, hey, thank you so much. I'm pretty sure by reading your book and this happened. Can you share any of the stories of success of readers that pick up your book?
Yeah, I get messages quite often from people saying, I helped them through a dark time, and I helped them learn how to love themselves more. And thank you for writing this book. I just went through a breakup and I was struggling with, my feelings of self-worth, thinking something was wrong with me. And I love to get those messages because that's the entire reason that I wrote the book. So it does warm my heart when I get those. And surprisingly, I get messages from men who have read the book, and they're like, I think everyone should read this book. I know you wrote it for women, but men can learn a lot too. And I agree, because a lot of it is about the way outside people view being single. So a lot of it comes from, the men that I've dated or that my friends have dated, or just in general, the thought process that I've seen, this idea of a woman being broken when she's single past a certain age, or doesn't have kids. So I do think it could be great for men as well. So I understand why they say that, because if you're open to, looking at yourself and evolving, you can look at that and say, oh, wow, I do that. I should stop. So I get a lot of messages from men also just saying, like, this is for everyone. And, I really appreciate that too, because we can think as highly of ourselves as we want, and that's where it starts. But I think it's also important to try to change the outside perception.
Absolutely.
And you mentioned something that is very important. And I always ask this question to the couples. I ask the men, how much do you love yourself today? When you wake up in the morning, ask yourself that question: am I loving myself 100%? Right? Because if you're not loving yourself 100%, there's no way on earth you can love somebody else. It's just it's not gonna happen. You're gonna love. So, and I think you create a good environment. In our book, we talk about healing, but I think in order to go through the process of healing, you need to be aware of the love you have for yourself, because you're like, all right, I need help. I need healing to get me there, right? And I think it's the number one thing, to love yourself, because once you love yourself, right, you start having respect for yourself, for who you are, right?
Yeah.
Well, and also what you're pointing out too is all these social structures, this messaging. It's like at us from every angle, right? In terms of our socialization, upbringing, all these different messages. And so I just think that's really powerful when you start like decoding it all and start realizing like, wait, maybe I don't have to do it that way. Maybe maybe there is a different option.
Yeah, like it's okay. There's no rule book that tells you have to live a certain way and do things at a certain time. And it's okay to, look into yourself and really make those decisions on your own and for yourself as far as, when to get married or in a relationship, and kind of just be open to it. I think one of you said before how we go out and we're trying to force things and we're thinking so much about the lack of what we have that we can't appreciate, what we do have. So I think that is important to not have this set timetable and beat yourself up and try to shoehorn people into these positions, but just focus on yourself and being open to those things that you want. And I believe they'll come to you.
Absolutely.
That's great. Well, we really appreciate.
Yes, thank you.
We really, we're learning so much from people like you.
Yeah.
Right? And really, because we are
so healthy.
We are preparing couples for marriage, but obviously they're in love, or they think they're in love, or and I think you are. It's like I say, it's not a step back, but it's a healthy beginning to really love yourself, set the foundation for for if you want to move forward into a relationship and have that healthy mindset that you offer. Where can people find you?
I am on social media at Acamea LD. That's ACAMEALD on all platforms. I have a website, AcameaDeadwiler.com, and you can get Single That, Dispelling the Top 10 Myths of the Single Woman on Amazon and all major online booksellers.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And your website's awesome. It's so informative. I love it set up. So I really encourage people to check it out.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And we're going to put all that, all the links and all your website in our description, so people can check it out. If you're single, men and women, both check it out to get those myths and really, like you said, love yourself, get to know yourself more, and really figure it out what you want, instead of going out there and getting pressured by family or society or the Bachelor on TV.
And COVID-19 is a good opportunity to do this work, right? It's a lot. It's a little bit more internal of a time. A lot of folks are social distancing, depending where you live, but you could flip that and make this be a good opportunity to really look at yourself and figure out, okay, you know what? Maybe this isn't the right time for me, or I'd rather be doing this, or discerning around this.
Yeah, to get to know yourself and invest in any, ideas that you have and things you want to do. It's a great time for that, because it's kind of forced us all to just slow down and be with ourselves.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And the good, the bad, and the ugly, right?
Gotta see it all.
Where thank you everyone who watches on our Facebook page and also on our YouTube channel. And if you have any comments, any questions, please write it there so we can get back to you.
And check out Acamea's book, Single That.
Looking forward to all the stuff that we have. We have a lot of content coming up. We're so blessed. We're so blessed to have people like you. And we're so blessed to be in the ministry and offer what we offer into our audience. So with that,
great talk.
Thank you so much. We will see you next time. This is our Facebook address and our YouTube channel, and we will see you next time.
Yeah, until next time.